My next guest is a writer out with her debut memoir that's taking a real look at what it means to be Native and American. Whiskey Tender recants how Deborah Jackson Taffa was born on the California Yuma Reservation and raised in Navajo territory in New Mexico, and how that formed part of her identity. Deborah joins me now. Thank you for being here.
Exciting to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I have to say, it's such a beautiful collection of memories. But in the memoir's opening chapter, you talk about a memoir kind of being taboo in Native American culture. But when I went back and read the dedication, because I thought it was so beautiful for my grandchildren who will one day look for themselves in this story, is that why you chose to do a memoir, so others and your grandchildren can find themselves in what you experienced?
I think I was thinking about future generations, definitely. I mean, it's hard to grow up in this country when you go to schools that don't really recognize the contributions of Native people to society. And I wanted to adjust some of the stereotypes, I think because the government treats us as wards of the state. A lot of times they think that we're unable to better our own circumstances. And that was never my experience growing up. My father was such a hard worker and worked in such a dirty labor field as a welder.
Right.
And I knew so many Native men in that generation that had come of age in the 50s and 60s who took whatever job they could find to push their kids ahead and pull them out of poverty. And like today, I know so many professional Native women who are working as lawyers and professors and business owners, and we don't see those stories of Native people engaging and taking care of themselves and their families in the world. It's always the story of poverty. So I wanted this to complicate the stereotypes and push the narrative forward.
Yeah, like your grandmother. And that's an incredible story that you said you didn't even know until, because these stories weren't told to you.
Yeah, there was a lot of shame, I think, in my father's generation. I think it was more dangerous to be sort of woke as a Native in the 1950s.
Right.
He grew up pre-civil rights, and so there were a lot of older people who said, de-emphasize your sort of Native traditions and your Native inheritance, and strive to be mainstream and strive to be a model minority. And so my parents chose to send us to Catholic schools, and they were very strict with us, and we were supposed to get straight A's. And that struggle, I think, is the struggle that like the general population and mainstream American audience can relate to probably in the narrative, despite its very significant Native elements.
Right. There are a lot of powerful moments, and you would talk about stories, heartbreaking stories. I think of your aunt. I understand you've compared your memoir, though, to the comedy drama series Reservation Dogs. So how are they similar in your mind?
I think that they're both coming of age stories. They both are playing with this, should I stay or should I go? Like, how do I be loyal to my people? Do I want to stay on the reservation or in this border town? Or am I allowed to go out and try to create a life in a city far flung with a dream that has nothing to do with bettering the circumstances of my people? And I think that there's a very poignant blend of kind of sad stories and humorous stories. Native people like to laugh, and that sort of levity and that sort of trying to engage the reader and make sure that they were entertained and have fun, even though the stories can be a heavy lift, was very important to me, and I think they do that very well in Reservation Dogs. This deals with teen suicide, and that also deals with teen suicide, and it's very firmly set in kind of Americana, you know, like the music of the era. Theirs is a more recent era. This is like the late 1980s, but you still see a kid listening to the Violent Femmes and carrying a Walkman and going to the roller rink. And so it's really about being both American and Native, like you said. And
very identifiable in that sense. I have to say, one of the things I love about the book, you know, you've dedicated your life, much of your adult life, to teaching and advocacy. So it's not really a surprise how you seamlessly weaved so much of history into the narrative in a beautiful way. I mean, I'm just going over some of these things, like when you were talking about Red Pride, movements that I hadn't heard of. Why was it so important to, actually, I guess my question would be, was that the plan all along, to weave the facts and the historical information in, or did it just kind of happen organically?
You know, all of the histories that are introduced in the book touch on my family history, so it's very personal for me. In the publishing world, you know that a memoir that is fast-paced and fun is going to sell easier and be read more than a
Right.
book that reads like a nonfiction book that ends up getting used as a doorstop.
Right.
But I wanted to weave it in. I just didn't want to digress so far that the reader lost track of the narrative arc, which was important. But to me, I mean, ask yourself, why would I reveal my family's trauma in a book?
Right.
For me, it had to be about the larger American context,
Right.
so that the book educates people. It's like you're baking a cake out of tofu. You know, the cake is the fun story about the kid growing up. The tofu is the little bit of history and governmental policies that you get to weave in a light touch. And then you kind of are maybe tricking some people to learn about what has happened in this country.
It's amazing. I think it's beautifully done. I think that one of the things that struck me so much is, I think as we try to move forward and so quickly, like you said, you lose sense of that family history. Why is knowing family history key to understanding who we are, or to who you are specifically in your Indigenous identity?
I think that, you know, oftentimes our histories have not been taught in school. And the version of American history that we hear, many of us are seeking an alternative version of that story that is more inclusive and is more diverse, not to point fingers or to blame people, but to create peace, because when people feel heard, they can feel, they identify themselves as contributing to the culture, they become happier people. And, you know, the thing is that a lot of Native people in the past have talked about fear of appropriation, and I think we really need to be moving towards more of an energetic approach to wanting to be influential.
Yes.
The stakes are high in America right now. You know, our democracy, there are a lot of big issues.
Yeah.
And I think that Indigenous voices right now and Indigenous value systems are more important than ever. And so you have to be vulnerable and open your stories up to the general public, maybe, I think, as writers, Native people do. And, you know, I'm the director of the MFA in Creative Writing program at the Institute of American Indian Arts. And that's what I tell my students now who are coming into the program, is like, our voices are needed. Indigenous voices are important to the history of this country, to democracy. And so don't be shy, tell your stories.
Well, thank you for telling your story and sharing your vulnerability with the world. It is an absolutely beautiful journey, and it was a pleasure to go on this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. And just a reminder to all of you, Deborah is holding an author event tonight, Wednesday, June 12th at 7 p.m. at the Elliott Bay Book Company on Seattle's Capitol Hill. Don't miss that.